Welcome to the Three Wise Women podcast. This is episode 1 called It's All About Perspective. We are your hosts, Bella,
Macy,
and Kayla. And in this episode, we'll discuss the book Cursed by Karol, Ruth, Silverstein and explore the essential question: how does Ricky's illness affect her relationships with others and her understanding of herself?
In this novel, the main character Ricky struggles with chronic arthritis. After moving high schools to live with her dad, she skipped school for 6 weeks due to a bullying incident. Throughout the book, she learns how to make up her schoolwork, maintain friendships, and spend quality time with her family, and most importantly, love herself. Ricky's illness causes her to feel alienated and different from her peers. This leads to her having low self-esteem and no self-confidence. Ricky feels as though her life is a disaster and she does not feel confident about herself or her life situations. She is self-conscious and has a negative outlook on her life due to her chronic illness, which has taken an extremely negative toll on her life. At the beginning of the story, Ricky is describing her normal and popular classmates. She declares, "I could never look like them, ever. I'm not like them. I hurt and they don't. I'm weird and they're not." On page 5. Ricky constantly compares herself to her peers, feeling ashamed of her arthritis. She critiques almost everything she does, which causes her to have such a poor self-image. This ultimately leads to her pessimistic attitude about life. In the article, Young Adults with Arthritic and Mental Health, it is described that teenagers with arthritis struggle with both physical and mental health, and should find support in their community. It claims, coping with arthritis and its symptoms can sometimes lead young people to develop a low self-esteem or impact their perception of themselves. This is because they may not be able to do things their peers are doing, might have difficulty explaining their condition, or might be dealing with the stigma of having a chronic illness. Young adults with arthritis have reported that this has led to feeling sad or hopeless, losing interest in normal daily activities, trouble sleeping or focusing, irritability, and more. These outcomes of the chronic illness have a negative impact on the teenager's life. Coping with arthritis can be difficult and lead to poor self-perception and more serious mental health issues.
That's true, Macy. Having arthritis at such a young age definitely seems like it can be defeating and can have a huge impact on self-confidence. Luckily, as Ricky grows more comfortable with herself and accepts the fact that she has arthritis, she begins to not feel so ashamed. While before she was trying her best to be invisible at school, after embracing her identity, her confidence rises as well, and this allows her to be herself in front of her peers. On page 124 in the book, it reads, "Here I say loudly, the strength of my voice startling me. For the first time since I entered the classroom, I look up, look around. That's right, I'm here, deal with it." Ricky and other disabled people are already disadvantaged in their day-to-day life because their illness or issue creates obstacles for them that the majority of people don't have to face. On top of this, people at Ricky's school make fun of her once they learn about her arthritis, making her day even more emotionally tiring than it already was. However, although Ricky does have trouble facing the fact that everyone now knows about her condition, she takes on the challenge and uses that to motivate herself to get through the day and continue working towards graduation.
I agree, Kayla. As we can see throughout the book, Ricky gains self-esteem and becomes more confident. This coincides with her acceptance of her illness as she learns to have a more optimistic outlook on her arthritis. Later in the book, Ricky starts her new medical infusions, which help her with the pain and stiffness levels. After trying it out at school, she states, "The rest of my day, my classes felt almost magical. Not really magical, but normal. Like I was a normal human girl having a normal human day at school, interacting with other normal humans, not hurting and feeling tragically weird and damaged." Although Ricky is still dealing with her condition, it's nice for her to feel a sense of normality in public. On her new biologics, she feels less pain throughout the day, which allows her to move smoothly and more confidently. She's able to go about her day without constantly worrying about her pain or how she appears to others, which boosts her morale and self-esteem.
Ricky's illness caused her to diminish her self-worth. When reading the book, it is clear that Ricky feels like her illness is a curse. Since it causes many disadvantages and obstacles for her, she believes that her body is imperfect and broken. She used to have comfort in knowing that at least she had perfect teeth, but since her one constant in her life changed, she feels as though she's totally and completely flawed. On pages 235 and 236, Ricky says, "Going in for my dental hygiene appointment is the only time I get to be perfect." Then it hits me all at once, and panic spreads throughout my being. This cannot be happening. Ricky's perfect teeth bring comfort to her because she feels like it's the only part of her that is normal. However, this idea comes crashing down when she figures out that she has a cavity. Ricky's cavity terrifies her because she thinks that now none of her is perfect and she'll feel broken and weird for the rest of her life. The National Library of Medicine claims that, with regard to self-esteem, researchers have consistently noted lowered self-esteem and universal helplessness among patients diagnosed with chronic illness. For instance, patients who view their chronic pain as uncontrollable take on the role of the victim to the oppressing disease, depleting their personal coping resources, including reduced self-esteem. According to this claim, lots of other patients with chronic illnesses have similar experiences to Ricky, as many of them feel oppressed by not only society but also a part of themselves. Just like Ricky sees her arthritis as a curse, lots of other patients with chronic pain become hopeless since chronic illnesses generally don't have cures. Ricky's cavity was her last straw and she freaked out. However, Oliver and her new doctor helped her to see the brighter side and gave her hope.
Such a sad but true point. She was so dead set on her teeth being perfect because it felt like the only thing she was able to control. It's really interesting to see how that throughout the story, that perspective of hers changed because of her experiences with Oliver, Mr. Jenkins, and her new doctor. We can see her perspective really take a shift when she meets her new doctor after Ricky experiences a really painful flare-up. She meets with the new doctor and he ensures that she should have the control she feels she doesn't have. On page 115, the doctor says, "What I mean is that having open lines of communication with your doctor is essential. It's your body, your life. You absolutely have a right to be involved with the decisions made about your treatment." This was 100% a turning point for Ricky. All that control she thought she didn't have was almost given back to her because she got a new doctor that cared about what she wanted and treated her like a human being.
I know, right? She had a very pessimistic and cynical outlook on everything when we were first introduced to her. However, after finding a new doctor, spending time with Oliver, and hearing his hopeful outlook on things, even after battling cancer and having long-term effects, we begin to see her character develop to be more hopeful and positive. On page 293, Ricky announces to her class, "When I was in terrible pain and I felt alone and afraid, and all those curse words were coming out of my mouth, the 4-letter word I really should have been saying was help. Of course, that also means that when someone offers me help, I need to say yes." This speech showed her growth and acceptance of her arthritis, and it also proved how much she cared about Oliver. Also, I think this message is super accurate and important. A lot of people struggle with asking for help because of so many different reasons which make them scared to do so. However, although asking for help can be so tough, getting the help that one needs is a crucial step in solving one's problems or even just recognizing them.
The most important thing for Ricky's growth in this story was feeling comfortable and validated by her family, her school, and her doctors. Ricky showed a lot of growth as the book went on, and a lot of this had to do with the people around her and how those relationships progressed as time went on. At the beginning of the book, Ricky didn't really have any friends and had a poor relationship with both her parents and her doctor. Ricky hated her parents, her old doctor, and herself because she felt cursed and helpless. She felt unsupported and like she had no need to put any effort into any aspects of her life, as she felt none of it mattered because she was cursed with her arthritis. We see that once Ricky starts to stick up for herself when it comes to her health, she has greatly benefited. For example, when she told her parents she wanted to switch doctors and start on her biologics, page 171 says, "I look at Mom and Dad. What do you guys think?" I ask. They look at each other like they're not sure what to say or who should say it. Finally, Dr. Dad says, "What matters is what you think." This is also a turning point for Ricky because she's not only gaining a better relationship with her doctor, but also advocating for herself with her parents and building upon that relationship. Her relationships with her parents were so strained due to the state of her arthritis, and she only began to build upon that relationship when she felt she was progressing in her condition. This really shows how having a doctor that cares about your condition is so necessary. The National High School Journal of Science says the communication between a pediatrician and their patients greatly impacts the efficacy of a healthcare system during medical interviews by improving health outcomes like a patient's understanding of their condition, quality of life, mood, and resolution of medical issues. Ricky's condition improving was almost symbolic of how everything else progressed after, so her control over her condition and newfound confidence in all her relationships shaped her growth.
Absolutely, Bella. I think it was essential for Ricky to be connected with family, friends, doctors, and teachers in order to have good relationships in life. This helped her share some of her struggles with her arthritis, and it was important for her peers to support her and be there to help. After her secret of having arthritis got out at her school, Ricky is taunted by her classmates. She expresses her frustration to Oliver, and she says, "He takes my hand, his skin soft against mine. I'm not even sure why, but tears start streaming down my face. At least someone knows my awful truth and isn't freaked out or disgusted by it. I'm afraid he'll try to talk me out of feeling the way I feel or say that I shouldn't care that the whole school made fun of me for a solid week. But he doesn't. He just holds my hand." It's important for adolescents with arthritis to be in touch with their mental health and reach out to others, especially if they feel like they're struggling. In Ricky's case, she has people surrounding her, like Oliver, who care for her and will be there for support. Ricky feels understood and seen by Oliver, which helps her get over the stigma of her arthritis.
Yes, it's so important that we bring up Oliver. Her relationship with him was also so impactful. It made her feel comfortable enough in her condition that she was able to branch out and meet even more people that truly cared about her and did not care about her arthritis. Because Oliver was so familiar with having a condition that affects everyday life and had such a positive outlook on life still, Ricky was able to latch on to some of this positivity and use it in other relationships. She also learned how not everything was about what goes down in Rickyville. Getting out of this headspace was crucial for Ricky to gain other friendships. We can see this when she sits with the so-called supermodel Barbies and notices that not everyone is truly perfect because she finally stops to think about the things that other people are going through as well. On page 298, Ricky says, "This close I can see bumps and acne scars under her heavy foundation." The one next to her, a chubby girl with pretty brown eyes, pops a baby carrot in her mouth, and I see that her fingernails are chewed down to the quick. To me, this was one of the main parts where I was able to see Ricky's growth. By meeting these people and recognizing she's not the only one who's flawed, we really see how she's progressed. She had this overarching belief that she was the only person who struggled and that everyone else cared so much about her condition, but learned that wasn't true because she took a second to not have everything be so centered around her and her condition. Well, that pretty much sums it up. Thanks for listening to episode 1. It's all about perspective. Your mindset on something can be a very powerful tool in changing how you experience the challenges you face.
We hope that this episode has opened your mind and made you think about how your outlook can affect your life. Remember that you don't have control over everything in your life, so instead of being oppressed by hardships, learn to grow around them while empowering yourself.
Tune in next time on the 3 Wise Women podcast as we discuss other topics. You can stay up to date by following us on Spotify and YouTube at 3 Wise Women. Until next time.